like that intro, man. It gets me feeling good. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that this finds you at. Appreciate you finding us. Spend us the time. I'm your host, Ricky Rains of the Bow Body Show with my co-host, Alex Bryant. Alex, how you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. What a beat. That sounds awesome.
It's a little bit of a vibe, right? Like it's kind of upbeat, man. It's fun. It's got a little bit of funk to it without being too crazy, man. I like it.
Yeah, dude, I got to change my camera view because I got like dirty clothes all over that bed.
I mean, you got a young baby, man. Like that's part of life, right?
These are my clothes, but whatever.
I was trying to give you an out there, and you just kind of leaned into the fact that you're living like a slob. Come on, man. I'm trying to be a buddy.
I'm at the bar like 12 hours a day, and then I'm on baby duty, so I don't have time to do chores. Brittany's
you could have said that same thing like 10 years ago. I'm at the bar 12 hours a day, but it just wasn't because you were working at the bar that you owned. That was just kind of what you did.
Yeah, I got Brittany's parents coming in this weekend, so they're gonna help out a lot with the chores that I have just ignored.
Oh yeah. Well, look, man, we've got a lot to talk about here. The Carolina Panthers got on like just full nut on the beginning of free agency, right?
Yeah, they did.
They're paying people like crazy. They have made trades, multiple trades. But as much fun as it is for me and you to do this on our own and talk, and we did have a long time, had a really great time with it. We really enjoyed last week when we had Aaron Duncan on. Terrific.
Let's go.
He's absolutely crushing everything. But we got another guest tonight. And this dude, man, I'm a giant fan of. Probably one of the nicest people I've ever interacted with on the internet. And that says a lot, man, because the internet is an awful place. And I have always seen this guy take the high road and just be the nicest, most genuine person. But he's also incredibly smart when it comes to sports, life, and in particular, the Carolina Panthers. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome to the stage Edgar Salmingo Jr.
I hope that track's up online.
Hey, there you go.
Hey. I didn't know we had a studio audience today, so
yeah, man.
I obviously didn't either.
How are you, Edgar?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I saw and watched the whole episode from last week with Aaron, and you guys were awesome. I'm honored to be a part of it. I know you guys say you're not professionals, but the work that you do, people are noticing. You do great stuff. You guys are nice people too, so I'm honored.
Well, the only reason people are noticing is because we put something on Twitter and Edgar shared it, and then we got like 600, 700 views when we used to get like 50.
That's the recipe, man. You know, like just tie yourself to somebody who is much better than you. You know? No, in all honesty, man, like Edgar, you and I have interacted for some time on Twitter. Not like a uber extended period or anything, but at least probably the last year or so. And it has been a pleasure getting to know you on the internet. But this is our first time speaking face to face. And personally, man, I'm very excited to learn a little bit more about what makes Edgar Salmingo Jr. tick. You know, like you've got a dynamic to you, man. I know a little bit about your past. I know that you've done some writing and stuff like that, and I know that you were a principal, correct?
Vice principal, but
vice principal. And I'm curious, can you kind of update people on what you're doing now and where they can find your work?
Yeah, I guess to start from the beginning, I'm in Los Angeles. I've been in Los Angeles, born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm not too shy to tell people I'm from the same very small city that Dave Canales is from and his family. And so if you like Dave Canales, you should like Edgar also.
Even if you don't like Canales, you should like Edgar.
Yeah, if you don't like Canales, you've got a problem. But I was a very impressionable teenage boy in the 90s. Los Angeles didn't have a team. Now we have two teams, but back in the day we had no teams. And so I, being a young 12, 13-year-old, said, like, that's the team I want to root for. The team with the cool black and blue logo and colors and vibe and aura. And so that's how I became a Panthers fan. And I would just watch their stuff. And this is why I give you guys so much like praise, is because back then, without the internet, without much, like I was literally thirsty for any news about Panthers, people talking about Panthers. That didn't exist over here. And so now we're kind of, I don't want to say oversaturated, but we're just overloaded and like overly blessed that like there's so much content creators that are out there that are feeding sickos like me that just want to talk about, just want to hear about what's going on with players. And on my personal life, I'm in education. I was a vice principal of a high school out here called St. John Bosco High School, and so a lot of players that are in the league or in college like come out of this high school. It's like a football factory. Their main rival is Modern Day, which is where Bryce Young and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I've seen these guys. I've met these guys. I've met them, behind the scenes. And so when people say like, "Oh, you're so nice, you're a pro player," it's because these people are human beings just like you and I. Like they're just trying to make it. The whole Brian Burns situation, I'm sure we'll talk about. Like, of course, I want guys to get paid. I mean, they deserve it. Brian Burns hasn't even been paid. He's never had a big salary yet. This is his very first big payday contract. And so I've always been a pro player because I've got to know these players and I know these families. People think of these people as like, I don't know, they have ego or that they're all about themselves. But for a lot of them, they have very humble beginnings and they're very respectful and very nice. And so that's how I got kind of into this. Back in 2011, 2012, somebody noticed me on Twitter, so I started writing for Catch Scratch Reader, which is on SB Nation. Left that for a while, went to USA Today, SMG or Panthers Wire. But now, just to answer your long-winded answer to your question.
No, I love it, man.
We're not used to long-winded answers.
Honestly, like the funny part is, man, I'm like very genuinely interested in all that, though. Like, I want to know how you got here because that story is really cool to me, man. Like, someone noticed me on Twitter and I started writing more stuff. Like, that's awesome. That's very similar to kind of what I'm doing, right? Like, I had an opportunity to write for Cat Crave, started it, and now all of a sudden here me and you are chopping it up about starting on the internet.
Yeah, and I started back in 2011, 2012. This is like when Cam Newton just started, and I was on Twitter with like 10 followers, and I'm just like tweeting up a story about every play-by-play, everything about the game. I was like, why does anyone care about what I think? All of a sudden, people care.
We get our best tweets off when you have like 42 followers, right? Like I'm like, man, I wish that I'd have had 1,000 followers at this time because I had money in the bank, man. It was just money back then.
Oh yeah, especially when you start, you like think way too hard about every tweet, and then like once you're like 1,000 tweets in, you're just like, I'm just thinking this right now. Then
yeah, and no.
Okay, sorry, we keep interrupting. I keep interrupting you, and you were just getting to like the culmination point here.
You're good. And so I kind of took a step back. I'm a dad. Back then, I was a new dad. I'm a new dad again. I have a 1-year-old baby.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I transitioned from being a vice principal, which is a super time-intensive job, and now I work from home, more flexible. I do early college programs for kids who are first generation or low income, get college experiences, taking college classes early, so they're more likely to go to college and complete college. And so I have a very, outside of the Panthers world, like people don't even know I'm a Panthers fan out here because there's just nobody here. But like in the real world, like I do like real stuff with real kids and real families and making it. And so now that I've switched to that kind of role, I've been tweeting a little bit more. I've been making more appearances, but I've been freelancing for Bet Carolina. I know these gambling companies all over the place, like they're just willing to do whatever or tweet stuff or write stuff. And then I most recently started writing like newsletters for Riot Report. And so just freelancing, just chilling, but nothing too crazy. I love my real job. I would never leave my real job to do this for full time. But power to the people who make these contents because it feeds my insatiable thirst for Panthers.
No doubt.
Talk
no doubt.
And discussion.
I'm assuming then you're a member of the Roaring Riot.
Yeah, they have an LA chapter here, and then I would if I go to away games, I would go in their sections, and that's awesome.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. You touched on the first thing that we could talk about tonight, and I think we should just go ahead and get straight into it. Brian Burns, right? That's the biggest news that has come from these first couple of days of legal tampering, and now the actual start of the NFL season was at 4 p.m. today. We're recording this on Wednesday night. Your initial takeaways from not only trading Brian Burns and him not being a Carolina Panther anymore, but the compensation that we got back for it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I was pro keep Brian Burns. I was #pay Brian Burns.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught it, but I went to the Seattle game this season. It was the only game I went to this season. And of course, it was the only game that Bryce Young didn't play at. And I met a guy who put up a sign that said pay Brian Burns and tried to yell at all the guys that would listen to us to show them the Brian Burns sign. We showed Samir Suleiman, who was not very happy. But I was very much a pro player. I love the players and I want them to get what they want. I'm not like that type of guy that says, oh, Christian McCaffrey's on the Niners, so I can't root for him anymore. Like, he's evil. He's dead to me. Like, these are real people with legit, like, it also gave back to the community. Like someone like Christian McCaffrey, like one of my friends, she's on here too, on Twitter also. Her name's Lynn. Her husband had passed away recently, and not recently, but at that time when Christian McCaffrey was still on the team. And Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Stewart, I want to say Fozzie Whitaker, they went out of their way to like play a song for Lynn, who just recently had her husband pass away. I was like, dude, you guys, like, I assume that these are football players who have so much to do, that have like,
right.
More important things to do. They take time out of the day to sing a song to a fan who just lost her husband. And so, like, how could I ever hate someone like Christian McCaffrey? How could I ever hate someone like Bradley Bozeman, who's giving much to the community? How could I hate someone like Brian Burns? And so, like, of course I wanted to keep him, and I also think he's a legit player. Not I like him to stay just because he's a nice guy, like, but he produced. And so when we talk about compensation, I know it's overblown about, hey, they could have had 2 first-round picks and whatever, but I mean, that's the game of football, right? When you play when you're in the GM chair, you take risks. So you play fantasy football, you make a trade, you don't make a trade, you make a trade, and the player you traded sucks, and that's just the risk that you play. And so they rolled the dice, and it fell for them, and they only got a 2nd and a 5th round pick. But if you saw the contract that Brian Burns got, like, it makes sense that the Giants would be like, hey, we're only willing to give this much because we're going to pay Brian Burns $30 million a year. Yeah. And so, as much as a fan, it hurts me. It's like, oh, this is all you get. You can't even get a 1st round pick. I mean, again, you took a risk. You took a roll of the dice. Maybe you thought you were going to be able to re-sign Brian Burns, and they failed him. So that regime is gone. Most of it is gone. And, I mean, there's nothing. It's not going to do anything for us to just sit here and sulk and be mad that they didn't get 2.
Thank you.
Just turn the page and let's move on.
Yeah, 100%. I think you bring up a good point too, though, about you feel like that player is worth more than a 2nd. And not just a 5th, but a future 5th. We don't even get that 5th this year. In a year where we could really use an extra pick. And you know what, man? I think that's my biggest gripe. I understand that you weren't going to get fair value for Brian Burns, right? I think we knew that once to be fair, the fair value was established when the Rams offered that trade, right? That was the highest it was going to get. So if you wanted to get your maximum return, it was right then. Either you take that trade, or you're either on the hook for the money, or you'll probably never see a trade like that again, because he's going to lose the year off his contract, and no one else, if you've turned it down, how's he going to live up to it, right? Like, he's kind of capped himself on his value that he's presenting to everyone else. My problem with this trade and the compensation is that future 5th. They paid him $150 million for 5 years after trading for him. And like you said, they don't want to give up premier picks for that and the financial obligation and contraction that they're going into with him. That makes a ton of sense. But from the Panthers standpoint, we had the franchise tag on him. If we absolutely had to, you could keep him and play him for the franchise tag, right? If you think that as a player, he's worth more than that 2nd and that future 5th, maybe put your foot down and say, give me a 4th this year, right? And just say, I am willing to take this on and remove this player from my roster, this terrific player, and bolster your defense. And all I'm asking is to go from pick 160 or 142 to pick 124, right? It seems doable. But the main takeaway I will leave with from what you said, no point in sulking, right? Like, it's over and done with, man. He's not a Carolina Panther anymore. And that sucks to say. We saw the really heartfelt goodbye post from the Panthers account today. I'm getting pretty tired of seeing those heartfelt goodbye posts from the Panthers account. I would love to see a welcome this person back post every now and then for our premier players. Alex, what did you think about the Brian Burns trade? Because you argue with me about just about everything. I know you're going to tell me that I'm wrong.
Well, so I think so. I really thought we were going to re-sign him. Because I've been really big on we have way more cap space than people think we have. So I thought we were going to re-sign him because I thought that's what we set ourselves up for. We created that space for that move. One, I don't think we could have did a franchise tag because he even said last year that he was playing. He didn't want to get hurt because he's only on a 1-year deal. Like, and I said, maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes ago, it's like you 2 years in a row, your best employee gets employee of the month, and then you're like, here's a pizza party. And then when you're that employee, it's just kind of sour taste in your mouth. I think he always kind of needed another place to go. I kind of wanted that for him and I think that's why he asked for so much money. I think he was just kind of like, you guys suck. Like, you guys have just treated me like shit, and I've done everything I can for you. And that sucks for the new front office in this case. But I mean, if I'm working at a job and I'm performing so well, and like, oh, you get a pizza party. Good job. Yeah. We'll give you. I mean, I don't give you a slight raise. We're probably not going to give you, a promotion, but we'll give you maybe a slight. It's just kind of like, okay, well, screw you guys. Then it's kind of how I feel about it. I think that it needed to be done. As much as it sucks, as far as compensation, at least we got something. I mean, you look, Wilkins went for nothing. Hunter went for nothing. Grenard went for nothing. Yeah. They're not going to get anything done with Allen. Allen's just sitting there, taking up the franchise tag cap space, so they're kind of handcuffing the Jags. They couldn't bring back Ridley. A bunch of stuff. I think that a rip off the Band-Aid was the only way to go with Burns for both sides.
I think that's fair. And thank you very much for reminding everybody how dejected you are in the corporate world again as well. Edgar, that's exactly why you bought a bar. Like every single time that Alex and I had a conversation about any kind of like contractual disputes or anything like that, he always has the best insight, but it's always very slanted towards, man, I hate corporate America. And he's right, though. Like, I think it's a very easy thing to hate the corporate style and how businesses don't value people. And that's just a general issue in this country, right? You can take that way outside of sports. We won't do it today for the sake of time because I want to get into that, but I don't really want to do it tonight. But the bright side of not signing Brian Burns to an extension, and I won't say necessarily to the extension, because you sign to that extension, man, you do open up some cap flexibility, right? That the franchise tag was kind of the handcuff that everyone was worried about. That was $24 million to hit this year. That really messes up your flexibility of bringing in players right now when we need them the most. It's a very critical time of being able to evaluate Bryce Young, who you have invested heavily in. So we needed that money, but you could have signed him to an extension. Brant Tillis could have used his incredibly large-sized head, which is awesome. I'm not joking about it. I've got a giant head as well. But there's got to be a giant brain in there. All the moves that he's made, like there is a really big brain, and he's very smart and understands how to manipulate that cap. But with him gone, it opened up a way for us to allocate $150 million. So with that segue in mind, let's get into the new Carolina Panthers.
Let's go!
Meet the new guys. I'm trying to figure like a really cool little like lighthearted cartoon type of vibe here, so that it wouldn't seem too overly corporate America. I didn't really want to scare Alex off.
That looks pretty. I don't want to get into what that looks like. I'll just take it. Yeah, that looks good. Pretty good.
Are you sure you don't want to get into that?
No. It just reminds me of it. Let's just move on.
We'll take it off.
Let's move off before Alex says something that we have to edit out. All right. The first one is Robert Hunt.
Let's go.
Starting offensive guard for the Miami Dolphins. Edgar, what did you think about the fact that we gave this guy $100 million?
I mean, it says they want to invest in protecting Bryce Young, right? Like, and this will probably get to the other free agents, but I want to say this, that like the media or the general media,
talk about it.
Mainstream media is always saying, oh, the Panthers are overpaying. The Panthers may have paid too much. Like, you're the worst team in the league. You're 2-15. You've had 6 straight losing seasons. No one's coming to Carolina with like the same offer as another team. Like, oh,
who's going to take that pay cut to come and play for the 2-15 Panthers?
Correct. Or even the same salary. It's like the same salary with the Panthers or the Bears, right? Like, or
and it's not like you can sit there and say that we have this rich history of our new owner being very player focused either.
Right. And so this is the type of thing you have to do if you're last in the league. You have to pay a little bit more to secure your guy. And if the Panthers said like, oh, I want to go cheap, or I don't want to like spend so much, like we wouldn't be talking about Robert Hunt today. And so I just want to be clear that the Panthers were aggressive. They picked exactly who they wanted and said like, I'm going to go aggressive for this particular guy. Not like, oh, whoever's on the PFF rankings, I'm going to drop money for that guy. Robert Hunt, even though he's not one of the guys in free agency that has a direct connection to the coaching staff, he has the exact, my understanding, the exact fit for the run scheme, the very complex running scheme that Dave Canales runs. Robert Hunt already knows how to do that and do that at a very high level. And so in terms of that piece, there was one podcast that Dave Canales talked about, like, hey, why is the Tampa Bay Bucks running, like, this is like partway through the season last year, like, why does the run game, like, why is it so stagnant? Why isn't it doing so well? And he said, even in Seattle and even in Tampa Bay, it is very difficult for players, for offensive linemen to pick up, like, all the different things that you need to do in this zone blocking scheme. It's not like pick a guy and run through him. Like, you have to, like, reach. You have to, like, understand angles. You have to know where you have to be. And so even though it seems like a lot, we're talking about triple-digit $1 million, I am very appreciative that this front office, these coaching staff, they said, this is the guy, this is the perfect guy that fits this system with this running style, and he's going to do really, really well. I'm going to pay extra just to make sure that we get him. And so I love this. I watched them all 22 today, and he's just an incredibly powerful player. But, like, in those run games, like, he's getting to the second level. He's doing these blocks. Like, yeah. And so I know, like, casual fans, fantasy football fans that watch that, you know, Devon A-Chain or Raheem Mostert's like, dude, that guy went off for touchdowns, went for long runs. Guess who paved the way for you? Love them. Yep. Guess who paved the way for them? And that's this guy right here, Robert Hunt.
Absolutely. I love the point that you make about the attention to detail with his familiarity with that blocking scheme for the run game and the intricate details to it. I think the thing that you said that stands out the most to me when I've watched him, the razor thin margin of error of him getting to his spots within the right amount of time, because it is so much motion, right? And it's way more in a gap scheme. You're one-on-one. Your obligation is your thing. You are supposed to beat your player, and that is your responsibility, right? In a zone scheme, which Canales runs that wide zone, it is a collective, and everything is tied to each other. And if Robert Hunt is a second late getting to his spot, or if he's unable to get to his spot, that is going to mess up other assignments. And that play is not going to be able to be run to its fullest ability, right? Robert Hunt is 6'6", 335 pounds. He is a giant dude. So the first thing that stands out is we are beefing up that interior. What an important part, not only for the run game, right? And I know that we like to harp on Bryce Young, but Canales has already said that he is going to be committed to the run game, and that his goal is marrying that run game with the things that Bryce Young does so well, with those play actions and those boots. The first part of that, though, is that you got to be efficient on the ground. You've got to figure it out. It took them, almost 7-8 weeks in Tampa to figure that out. But once they did kind of get that married together and he calibrated, figured out what worked, they were pretty damn sharp, man, towards the end part of that year. Baker Mayfield put up some really nice numbers towards that end part. Rachaad White had a really nice productive year, especially in the tail end. Robert Hunt is going to give you a anchor on the right side of that line for the next 4 to 5 years, in my opinion. I don't have any questions. I'm not a big PFF guy, but when you look at those grades right there and you look at the snap counts and you look at all of that, this was the first year that he dealt with injury, really. For a guy that size to just now have had an injury, and it's important to note with that injury, man, it was a hamstring or a groin. He was out for a little while. I think they played it pretty cautious with that. They
I agree.
Put him on IR, and they wanted him to heal. But in week 18, when they had, or the first postseason week, right, when they went to Kansas City, he was back, man, and he played. He played the full allotment of snaps. And he came out of it saying that he was healthy. So in my mind, I'm not concerned about that injury that he sustained last year. His durability has never been a question. But you look at the consistency of those numbers. Say whatever you want to about PFF. I'm one of the biggest detractors of using it as a sole basis of an argument. But it does take into account data, and it puts it in a digestible, comprehensive way. Regardless of your feelings on it, it does that. His numbers are very consistent. And to me, that's very important because I don't think that we have had any consistency on our offensive line at all last season. Obviously, we had 8 guards play, right? Like, we were down to our 8th and 9th string guards. That's crazy, man. We shipped off one of the guys that we brought in because he wasn't working out. I don't mind the money. What else are you going to do with the money? You pay the people to protect Bryce Young. What are we talking about? Alex, what's up? What do you got?
he's $6 million against the cap. Like, it is not like everybody, like nobody actually like reads anymore. And I feel like my father right now. It's like, yes, 100 million looks like a certain thing. That's why I kept on preaching. We have more cap. We have more cap. We have more cap. And you expect more, accept more, expect more signings. But everybody's like, oh, we only have 30 million. Oh, Brian Burns, the cap space. We only have 11 million. How are we going to do anything? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not. It's not A equals B. It's more complicated than that.
The salary cap is like pigeons. They're not real.
I mean, it is real, but we sit here and watch. Oh, yeah, so we got Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Terran Armstead. They're all making a ton of money. How do they sign them all? It's like you find ways to manipulate the cap in a certain way, and that's why Tillis is so valuable. Anyway, off of that rant, Robert Hunt, if that dude plays for Alabama, that dude might be a top 10 pick. He would play for Louisiana Lafayette, his early second round pick 39. That dude is a monster. And just like Edgar said, man, watching him and that Raheem Mostert isn't Raheem Mostert last year without somebody like that dude blocking for him. I was loving this pick. And as much as I mean, this is going to sound really, really bad. As much as I love Brian Burns, I'd much rather have Robert Hunt and not watch my quarterback get dismantled every offensive play. And then kind of
fair, man. I think that's super fair, though, because we all really like Bryce Young, too, and we all really want to see the potential of what he could be. I'll bring up one point to piggyback off of you before we go to the next guy. You bring up Raheem Mostert, right? That's a dude that's had durability issues his entire career. He's gotten smacked around, and he doesn't have like the biggest frame to absorb a lot of that punishment. Tua Tagovailoa is a guy that has had some durability issues, right? Mm-hmm. This dude right here played some of his best ball last season, and both of them made it through the season completely healthy. That's important, man. I think that there's a correlation there. I'm not saying he's personally responsible. He's not like walking hand in hand with them and making sure that nobody, knocks their books out of their hands in the hallway. But like, he is definitely a protector of his guys. And we saw some instances last year where our offensive line got bullied, Bryce Young got popped, and nobody was at somebody's neck about it, right? I don't anticipate Robert Hunt taking those kind of situations that lightly. Right. And I also don't think that I would try a guy like Robert Hunt if I was feeling froggy. That would be the thing that I need. So I'm excited about it, man. Dan said he wants a dog. I think he got one here. Right? That seems like a dog to me. Now, when I saw this signing, I'm going to tell you, I saw this signing and I was like, that's the big one, right? Like, that's the giant splash. That was a guy, I wrote an article for Cat Crave exploring the interior offensive lineman options. And he was a guy that I said, this would be my guy, but I'm very concerned about the money. I don't think that they'll shell out that money. They proved me wrong. I was excited, but then I was like, well, that's probably it, right? That's probably the big one. No, the report started coming out. Doesn't sound like the Panthers are done with bolstering that offensive line. Let's see what they do next. Damian Lewis, the offensive guard that had played in Seattle. There's a coach in Carolina that has a lot of familiarity with Seattle. I love this. You got him at a little bit less of a cost. He hasn't been the model of consistency like Robert Hunt has necessarily. This is a big dude. And again, we are talking about beefing up that interior. You got to make a wall, man. I said it on Twitter that they're taking like an anti-open concept approach to all this, right? They are literally adding walls to the inside of the structure. They are trying to just wall off everything in front of Bryce Young. And that should be music to all of our ears. Edgar, what stands out to you about Damian Lewis?
Yeah, you already mentioned it. Like, when you said Robert Hunt was like the big fish, I think like Damian Lewis is probably like my favorite signing in terms of value. Like you said, he's familiar. And so when we talked about, the Dave Canales' history of it taking people a long time to figure out this run scheme, you already got two guys who already know the scheme. And so that you're erasing like weeks of just learning. Like, they already know the scheme. Obviously, he has connections to Seattle. The people that are from Seattle, but the assistant offensive line coach, I'm not going to pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he directly worked with Damian Lewis. So like, there is a lot of continuity here. Again, maybe they spent a lot on Damian Lewis, but to be honest, like, if you got two guys who already know your system and you have to pay maybe a little bit extra to make sure you get this guy, it's awesome. And so, you talked about a little bit with Robert Hunt. One thing that I was watching some All 22. is that like these guys are bullies. These guys finish blocks. These guys block and then make sure you're on the floor and stay on the floor. Like these are like not very friendly people that I want to like line up on the other side from. And so one way that people think that you could help out Bryce Young is like, oh, let's get some pass. I mean, they are pass protectors, but let's just focus on like protecting him in the pass. What if like the best way to help Bryce Young is to be a bully, to have this amazing run game, and then all of a sudden Bryce Young doesn't have to feel like everything is on him because the run game will help open up that pass game. And so I really appreciate that not just Damian Lewis, not just Robert Hunt, but the tandem of two bullies in combination with Austin Corbett and Ike Ekwonu. I would say Taylor Moton's a really good blocker. I don't see him being like as nasty as the other four, but these four, I would just love to see like what this run game looks like when all four of them are trying to rip your face off and bury you to the ground, just what Dan Morgan said he was going to do in the off seasons. I just think it's incredible, and he's just like Robert Hunt in terms of like being able to reach block, being able to do these zone blocking, and even the very small occasions where Seattle and Tampa Bay were running those power schemes, like they can do that too. And so I really, really love the value, and I really love the tandem of the two, the tag team of Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt versus just them individually.
And real quick, Alex, before I get to you, the thing you talked about with the continuity and already have an understanding of the scheme and the language that they're going to use, right? Because communication is a huge part in it. They're also going to be able to help Ike and Taylor and Austin Corbett or whoever else is going to fill in that center spot. They're going to be able to help with that learning curve, right? They're already ahead of the 8 ball here. Like they can get this rolling in a production where it's not 5 guys learning something together. It's 2 guys kind of like keeping the other 3 up to speed, right? And I really love that dynamic too, because coaches can do as much as coaches can do. But you want this bond to be formed, especially in a unit like an offensive line. You want these guys to be a family, essentially, right? Like you want there to be a great amount of trust amongst these 5 players, assuming that they all stay healthy. You want them all to trust what they each do. And I think that having guys who are already familiar and then having the other guys be able to ask questions and lean on them in game, in practice, in camp, all of those ways, I think that only facilitates that trust and that comfortability amongst the offensive line. Alex, what do you think about Damian Lewis and spending a total of $150 million on our interior offensive linemen?
Literally, this is what really makes me like annoyed is because like all of last year, you're like, we got to give Bryce an offensive line, and now we do it. Like people think we can get just like excellent players everywhere. That's not how it works. Like you have to lose, cap somewhere to get cap in other places. I like Lewis. I mean. I'm kind of like with Edgar. I like the value of it. I like him in tandem. Like he said, it's the whole line that makes it for me. And running at those defensive ends. Like I talked about this last year. When you run at the defensive ends, they wear down, and 2, they can't just dial up and run at rush the passer. They have to kind of wait for a second, just a little slight bit of time. There's so much, and these guys are athletic, so they pull a lot more. So you have Ike, Hunt, and Lewis all running downhill at you with Chuba right behind them.
Yep.
That defensive end, Bosa don't want none of that. Like Allen, whoever it is, doesn't want any of that. And then we got to see what Corbett does at center. I'm assuming that's who gets. But we're structuring these contracts in such a way, I wouldn't even look at these numbers. Tillis, I'm a math nerd. Tillis is doing already an excellent job, and we haven't even started restructuring yet. I'm very impressed with what I've seen already. Like he's a $4 million cap hit this year. Tillis is already earned his money.
Man. Yeah, it's a signing bonus. Like that's the smart thing that people do.
And I want to touch on this, and people are going to hate me for it. Fitterer set these guys up for success. I'm going to give him a little credit. Fitterer had a lot of flaws, but man, we had 0 dead cap going into 2025, which gave us the flexibility to put some of these heavy signing bonuses in this year to go and spread it out over 25, 26, 27. I don't
think they're happy with you, Alex. I don't think you're being above them, man.
I get Fitterer had flaws. I was okay with letting him go, but they always said it was a 2-year plan, and man, these guys are able to push cap down the road because there was 0 dead cap moving forward.
Yeah, I hear you. The one last thing we'll touch on with Damian Lewis, because I forgot to say how smart Edgar was with this one. Everything Edgar says so far has been absolutely tremendous, by the way. But when you talk about like maybe the best thing for Bryce Young isn't just to have great pass blockers, right? But is to have this powerful, almost unstoppable feeling running game. Imagine some of these premier edge players, right? That just want to pin their ears back and get after Bryce. That is what they want. But we keep on forcing them to play run defense. And not just playing run defense, but they're dealing with Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt on pulls that are coming around and that are just broadsiding these dudes and finishing it. Like Edgar said, they're not just getting the paws on them, they're driving them into the artificial turf of Bank of America Stadium, right? I want that. That turf doesn't have a lot of give, man. I want their players to be on that turf, not ours. So we finally got some guys that have that same mentality, it seems, and ability. And I love it when a mentality matches an ability. And I think that Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt bring that. And I hope that a little bit of that rubs off on our former 6th overall pick, Ike Mekwonu. With that, let's get to the next guy. A'Shawn Robinson. Man, there's a theme here with the first three, right? They are building the trenches up, and they're doing it from the middle out, and they are doing it by adding beef. I mean, they are just getting big dudes, man, that want to be active and that seek out action. A'Shawn Robinson is a really wide-bodied tackle that has enough ability to cause a little bit of disruptiveness from the interior. But I think that where he makes his money is in that run game. And where the Carolina Panthers had a massive deficiency on defense last year, ever since letting go of Marquand McCall, they did not have an answer in the middle. They were forced to try to use Derek Brown a little bit more in that zero technique. That's not where you want him to be playing. That's not where he's going to be the absolute most effective. Now, look, I say that, and he set the single season record for sacks, right, from a defensive tackle. I'm not saying that he wasn't effective and had a great year. I mean that you can deploy him from different alignments and get extra out of Derek Brown, I think. I think that he's got a whole nother level still to scratch the surface of. Edgar, your thoughts on A'Shawn Robinson?
Yeah, I haven't seen as much of him than the previous two, but I will say that when I've seen him, he was here in LA, and he worked with Ejiro Evero when he was here in LA. And like you said, a big body that we didn't have. When they let go of Marquand McCall because he was supposed to be the nose tackle, and they cut him right before the season starts, it was like, who's gonna stop the run? There's no literally tried every single thing, and we couldn't stop the run for the life of us. We knew they were gonna run, and they still ran on us, right? And so I appreciate, like you said, building from the trenches out. It's funny because in free agency you don't always get to pick the order in which you sign your free agents, but like
Absolutely.
I couldn't have picked a better order how to build your team than starting with the offensive line, then the defensive tackle spot, and then playmakers, right? And so this is just a beautiful thing. And I do think, again, just like we said with Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt, having a guy who is in a very complicated scheme, who already knows it, already knows how to play it, already knows the language, already knows the coaches, you erase all that time. And so, again, just the methodical precision, almost like a surgeon's this is the exact guy I want because this will help us, speed up the process. I know, chef's kiss, just the whole process was just amazing. And so I appreciate that they want to stop the run. On one side, they want to run the ball and ram it down your throat. On the other side, they want to build this wall with Derek Brown and A'Shawn Robinson that says, hey, you can't run on us. And so I appreciate, as someone who's watched them suck running the ball and stopping to run the ball for so many years, there's okay, this is enough. We're going to start here.
Man, I was so nervous when we heard Dan Morgan and a couple other people in the Panthers organization say the word alignment and vision and cohesion and all of these hot button words. I was so nervous that it was just a byproduct of all the sticky notes left around their offices on South Mint. I'm starting to think that it was a genuine thing, man. And I hate this about myself. I am an eternal optimist. And I am starting to buy in, and I'm starting to let that optimism just seep into every little opening that I have for it. And I'm trying to still put a little bit of a guard up because it's sort of you've been hurt in the past. Do you really want to open yourself up to get hurt again this soon? But I'm starting to feel like I'm ready to get hurt again. Alex, what do you think? Does A'Shawn Robinson give me a better chance of really opening up and getting obliterated again this year?
I agree with Edgar about the trenches, right? Think of all these. Think about the Lions. Lions were absolute trash 2 years ago, right? They built up the trenches. They built up the trenches. And then they finally got a pass rusher. And then it all kind of came together. They finally got Amon-Ra. Those last little pieces, and I think that's what we're looking for, those last little pieces, with the edge, into the receiver. And then Lions took off. They needed some playmakers, needed somebody in the back end. And think about the Jags kind of did it the same way. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl. They got Josh Sweat finally stepping up on the edge. They went and got out a receiver, but they built the trenches first before they did any of that. And then the little things, they went out and got Bradbury, Reddick, and then those little, once you have the trenches built out, that's when you need to get the basically the cherry on top, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that we're doing kind of the same thing, because what are we missing? We're missing our Reddick. We're missing our A.J. Brown. We're missing, we gave rid of Von Bell. We're missing our C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And that is kind of, I feel like and think about before they did that, Jalen Hurts was in his second year. Third year, they started to put the cherries on top. So I think that we're doing our second year duty right now.
Sure.
Duty. And then we're doing, and then next year will be more of the year that we put the cherries on top.
I was wondering how many times you were going to say duty, you know? All right. So let's get to the next guy, because I want to, we've got a couple of things that we want to do, I think, to fit into this episode. But there was a couple other things that happened here that I think that this next guy was honestly a very under the radar pickup. I want to give JJ Hardy, Panthers culture on Twitter, a little bit of a shout out here, because he had called this guy as a potential target for the Carolina Panthers in free agency. And I think it's just a gem of a call, because Josey Jewell.
Let's go.
They're the gem of a call, Josey Jewell.
Yeah, it's okay.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm still workshopping all of these puns and stuff like that.
It's your first time like pushing.
Bear with me. Josey Jewell. I was devastated. Not devastated. That's a very strong way to say that. I was upset about Frankie Louvu not being retained. I like Frankie Louvu very, very much. I think that he is not only a terrific football player, a Swiss Army knife football player, if you will. People will criticize his coverage skills. They'll criticize missed tackle rate and all of those things. I think that when you ask a guy to do 1,000 things, he's gonna struggle in some of those areas, especially when it's not his forte to begin with. I think if everybody had been healthy and you could have deployed Frankie Louvu the way that I think that he's most effective, I don't think we had that conversation about his coverage and his tackling being as much of an issue. I think he was trying to mask the deficiencies of that defense, and he kind of took it on the chin. He's also the heart and soul of that defense. I mean, he is a firecracker. He is the engine. He is what starts it. You talk about the keep pounding mentality. You talk about a dog, all of those things. That's Frankie Louvu to a T for me. Turns out the reporting is that they did pursue him late. I hate the whole late pursuit too. It sounds like we were in it at least throughout the process. But if you make a big enough commitment and gesture and intent that you want him back, I think that you could get him back, right? That's purely just my personal speculation and thoughts on how sometimes negotiating and feeling wanted can go. But Josey Jewell comes in and he had his best season with EJ in Denver. And I think that there was a real reason that he brought him here. And again, it's that run defense. This dude is a stout defender. Like he's going to take you on. We've all seen the clip, or at least I'm sure the three of us have, the clip of him taking on Derrick Henry one-on-one. And man, I mean, it looked like a high school kid tackling a middle school kid. And normally it's the other way around with Derrick Henry. It was a hell of a hit. He followed through with it. He's got some thump to him, and he's got some power. I saw a clip of him back in his college days playing for Iowa, where I think it was Rutgers had first and goal from like the 4-yard line. Josey Jewell made 4 tackles in a row, every single down, to stop them from getting in from the 4-yard line. He's got it, man. Like he's got that old school linebacker feel to him, right? Like I almost want him to have one of the neck collars in the back. You know, he could just have that same style, like maybe get some blonde hair extensions or something, like really just make him like a dirty dude out there. Like that's what I'm looking, you know? But I like the addition. I think it bolsters again that middle of the defense where we were very vulnerable. We've got Shaq Thompson coming back, but I think Josey is a really nice piece that is being overlooked. Edgar, your thought?
Yeah, I mean, you said most of it. I would say that like I was also upset like when Frankie Louvu came on the scene and like it was before he got super popular, before he became mainstream, and he was making plays every week. I was like, dude, this guy is amazing. And so then all of a sudden he blew up, right? And so I know I sound like every fan, like, oh, I knew him before everybody else knew him. So,
I didn't.
No, but it's fair though, man. Like, and that's the argument though that we always have with the Panthers, or at least recently, when you do these homegrown, developed players, it really sucks when we kind of act as a farm system for other teams, where we build them up, we get them to the place where they have all their confidence and they know exactly what they can do, and their abilities are sharp, and then we say, best of luck on your next endeavor. I felt the same way about Frankie, Edgar. The very first editorial or opinion piece I got to write for Cat Crave was about how Frankie Louvu wasn't getting the respect that he deserved, and he should be mentioned with the Roquan Smiths. You know what I mean? Like he's a hell of a ball player, man.
I was like, is anybody paying attention? Am I the only one seeing this? Like everybody else was kind of quiet, and I'm just hoping that like Frankie Louvu came as a very under the radar free agent pickup that nobody, when they signed Frankie Louvu, nobody was like, oh yes, we got Frankie Louvu, right? And so like here's some guys that they picked up, and hopefully we could develop another Frankie Louvu. I think Josie Jewell is another person that fits in a complicated system that he already knows, and also already worked with Ejiro Avero. And so I haven't seen again as much of him as many. The one that I saw was when he had 2 interceptions of Patrick Mahomes in the same game. I was like, man, this guy's awesome. And so I don't know so much. One of the things that I like to do for research also is look at what the fans of that team say about them leaving. And so I know a lot of people were kind of bummed about losing Josie Jewell and what are they going to do without him. He only just gave them 100 plus tackles every year, give them a heart and soul to their defense. And so like I'm excited to bring that back. I know you talked about the neck roll and the long hair. It reminds me of like those days where you had a Dan Morgan, Luke Kuechly, John Beeson. Like, who's that guy who's a thumper in the middle? And so, like, I'm hoping that he could be a throwback. But at the very minimum, he's 60% of Frankie Louvu. They paid 60% of Frankie Louvu, and so at the very minimum, at least it's not going to be like a complete fall off from how much we love Frankie Louvu.
Look at that, man. He's 60% of Frankie Louvu, and they paid him 60% of what Frankie Louvu got paid. Hey, that's why you keep getting these freelance opportunities, Edgar. You got away with those words, man. Alex, real quick, what do you think about Josie Jewell, man?
Yeah, I mean, go first talk about Frankie Louvu. As Panthers fans and fans of Louvu, just gotta respect him. Like, if I work for Apple and Frankie Louvu wants to go to Amazon, I was like, hey, we'll give you more money than Amazon. He's like, no, I really just want to go to Amazon. It's like, well, good luck to you, man. Like, I don't want to take you away from what you want to do. So I think it's like, don't blame the front office. It's more like that's what he wants to do. Like, let him do it. Jewell, like, I think he's going to fit really well. I mean, you think about a 3-4 middle linebacker isn't as important as if you're in a 4-3. I think he's going to be really good in the run game. I think that we're just going to be very, very stout. I think that Evero, I wouldn't be as concerned about corners because I think it just seems like Evero just finds a way to do well in the pass game. We just got gashed in the run game, so I love those two pickups. As far as
you mentioned corners, though, man, because I don't know if you saw the late news today, Alex. I don't know if that was intentional by you there.
It really wasn't. No, I'm not that smart. I'm not really that smart.
Yeah, every now and then,
if you see me tweet, I'm not that smart.
Well, how about Dane Jackson then? And here's the really funny part too. And Edgar, you touched on it earlier. I've been kind of omitting it, and not on purpose, but just because I'm forgetful. And this is my second IPA. But they are a lot of familiar names with people, right? Dane Jackson is a guy that Dan Morgan supposedly pounded the table for in Buffalo. All of these players so far have had familiarity with where they're going outside of Robert Hunt, but Robert Hunt had the familiarity with the scheme and the obvious fit, right? But Dane Jackson's another guy that has a history of Dan Morgan believing in him. He was more of a fill-in Buffalo when they needed somebody. He was a corner 3 type of guy that he would get thrusted into the starting position every so often. I'm kind of on him, and I'm going to be completely candid about it. I haven't watched a ton of him individually, so I don't really want to just talk baselessly about what he can and can't do. I'm more familiar with his usage than I am his game. I'm okay with the signing as far as a depth signing type of deal. From what I have gathered, He has a better zone game than he does as a man-to-man defender. Avero does like to run zone concepts more so than he likes the fact that JC can press, but he didn't run a whole ton of man coverages. And that's even dating back to Denver. That wasn't just last year because we didn't have it. That's just a tendency that he has shown. So I think Dane Jackson probably fits what he's looking for. I don't think that this satisfies my personal need as far as it should be our cornerback 2 going into the season.
Correct.
I still think that there is work that can be done in that department. Edgar, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, same thing. I haven't watched a ton of him. I did find one kind of like, advanced analytic that said like he was one of the people that kind of gave up the most separation compared to other corners. Some people
24th percentile, I believe.
Yeah. They said maybe he plays a lot of zone, so take that with a grain of salt. Again, I haven't watched his reps, so I'm going to take this advanced analytic and just say, like, I believe this and I don't believe anything else. But I think he hits the other pieces, like you said, familiarity, the mentality, the mindset, the competitiveness that Dan Morgan wants.
He's a willing tackler too, from what I've read. He's a pretty sure tackler.
Pretty sure tackler. All the beat writers in Buffalo say he's like a class act, and so like I believe that he's a very good culture fit and locker room presence. It remains to be seen if he could live up to the CB2. But if they can't get a CB2 in Buffalo, the people have said like, hey, he's been a reliable fill-in. And then I'll also say like, hey, who else is out there on the market? Who else are you gonna have to spend for somebody? So it's like, hey, might as well get someone you're familiar with that could possibly fill in. But it's not like there are a lot of Sauce Gardners out on the market that you can just pick from. Like we're down to what was left, and I think he was probably the best that was left on the scrap heap. Not to say that he's a scrap heap type of person.
No, right.
He's left in free agency. I think he was a very specific, a very strategic addition to the quarterback room.
Yeah. And a lot of people are going to gripe about the contract, but there was some key terminology in the way that they announced that contract. It was 2 years, I believe, like 14 million or something like that, 14.8 million. But the terminology that was used intentionally was 2 years for up to 14.8 million. So it is very likely incentive based. I would guess that's playing time, snaps, accolades that he could get throughout the year, certain statistics that they would want him to reach to get to trigger bonuses. So I think that it is important to note that just because it's up to 14 doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to get $7 million a year to come in and be cornerback 3 or 4. Alex, your thoughts?
It's just it's a depth signing, in my opinion. People talk, listen, based on what they're doing at cornerback room. 1, tells me they're probably drafting a corner. 2, I think they're going after a safety, and his name might be Justin Simmons. That's just a guess. I don't know.
They got Jordan Fuller coming in town, I believe.
I told you last week, and I won't count Hunt as this because he could be. But I said expect one big move. I still think one big move is coming. I don't know what it is, but if you look deep, there's a reason that they're making this. There's a reason Hunt is only making $6 million this year. They're holding on to money. Money is going to be thrown at someone. I don't know who that someone is. It might be in trade. It might be a big time free agent like Justin Simmons. But I think a big move is happening. That's it. He's a depth piece. I mean, that's all I got to say about Benja. He might start. I mean, he's going to compete. But he might get cut too. I don't know.
So the next big move, it maybe is my favorite. I don't know. Robert Hunt's going to be really hard for me to top, but the next move I think is one of my favorites. Dante Jackson was said to be on the chopping block. Right? They already said that they had planned on releasing him. And if they couldn't get a trade, they were going to let him go. So the intentions were known. That's a really smart thing to do in certain cases. We saw them try to do it with Von Bell. Unfortunately, the safety market was much more saturated with quality players, and there just wasn't going to be a demand to trade for Von Bell. Dante Jackson is a little bit different, and the cornerback market is a little bit different. When Dante Jackson is healthy and put in the right situations, he can be a productive and decent player for a team, especially a team that needs help. Yeah, I don't hate Dante the way that many Panthers fans do.
Oh, sorry, I think you're saying Deontay. Sorry.
I understand some of the shortcomings he's had. Yeah. Like,
sorry, I thought you were talking about Deontay Johnson. My bad.
No,
too many IPAs. I mean, But
Well, here, now that you just ruined the surprise, thanks a lot, Alex. Deontay Johnson, we traded for him. Alex just broke news right here. Thank you, Alex. This is the Alex Bobati show.
oh man,
no, I'm totally.
I think you said Deontay Johnson's decent. I was like, okay.
Deontay Johnson's terrific. I'm very happy that we did that. Deontay Jackson was the one though that we were able to throw him in on this deal for Deontay Johnson. And it really was a Deontay Jackson for Deontay Johnson. And this is a tongue twister. I feel like I'm reading like a Dr. Seuss book. This is Fox and Sox, but with football. You know what I mean? Deontay Jackson was traded for Deontay Johnson for a swap of 6th and 7th round picks, I think was the final compensation. Deontay was going to be off the roster anyways. To bring in a guy like Deontay Johnson, who you talked about it earlier, Alex. All year long, all we talked about as fans was Bryce never has any time to throw from the middle of the pocket. And the second thing that you would say after talking about him having no time to throw is even if you give him a little bit of time to throw, there's nobody open. Nobody is creating their own separation. We already knew we couldn't rely on the offense and the coaches to scheme somebody open. We learned that really quick, unfortunately. But we didn't have anyone that was winning one-on-one. You can talk about Adam Thielen. Thielen had a productive year. I appreciate every single thing that he did. It was manufactured and it was force-fed for the most part that got him to the heights of the production that he reached. That doesn't mean that he wasn't good, and it doesn't mean that he didn't earn the recognition for his play last year. But I think that what Deontay Johnson brings is something that we did not have even remotely. And that should be news to everyone's ears, especially Bryce Young, as an anticipatory thrower, to have a route running technician that will win early and win on his own. He is going to be able to find places to present a clear target for Bryce Young. And I love that about Deontay Johnson. People will talk about his drops. Doesn't concern me. If you look at the history, he had a lot of drops early on. He has seemed to shore that up. I believe that his drop rate was like 3.8% last season. He had 2 drops. That doesn't concern me, man. If we're looking for a perfect prospect that we can get for Deontay Jackson in a 6th round pick, I mean, I got a beach in Iowa that I would love to introduce you to as well. And if you got friends that think the same thing, you can jump at a timeshare situation. Like, it doesn't bother me one bit. This is a good move. This is a competent move. And it is an immediate veteran help in a wide receiver room that was absolutely devoid of talent. Edgar, how do you see this?
Exactly how you see it. I would say my favorite part of this deal is like the opposite of what I hated the most about the Brian Burns deal, right? Like this was basically free. This was basically free. And so I know a lot of Steelers fans are like, oh, he's a head case. He talked about the drops. He talked about like potential negative energy or negative vibes. But you got him for free. If Deontay Johnson doesn't pan out, like you didn't give up.
He's on his final year of his contract.
It's a contract year. He's going to be playing real hard.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, what? How can you hate this? How can you hate this deal unless you're like the biggest Deontay Jackson fan and we're hoping that he was going to stay? I mean, and then on top of that, I mean, that's already my favorite part. And then on top of that, Matt Harmon, who's a big Panthers fan, who's like the most charting of every wide receiver in the
Reception. Shout out to Matt Harmon and Perception.
Shout out to Matt Harmon. Like this dude, like wins in every way that you want.
Yep.
Like man, zone, press, levels, right? Short, intermediate, deep.
Yep.
And so, like, I don't know if you guys caught this, but do you guys know who has the most drops in the NFL in the last few years, or even this last year?
Puka, I think it was last year, right? Was it not last year, Puka? Doesn't matter. Two.
Puka's up there, and then Tyreek Hill was the other one. And so, like, if that's the metric for you to be a really good wide receiver is the most drops, then I'll take a Deontay Johnson.
Oh, yeah,
I'm going to turn away from Tyreek Hill and Puka Nacua. I was like, oh, I would like Tyreek Hill, but he has too many drops. I would like Puka Nacua, he has too many drops. And so, like, Matt Harmon has always harped that like drops, it should be a stat that should be removed because it has no like context to exactly what that means. And so, if you're going to get a lot of targets, you will get a lot of drops, right? I like to say it as like a slugger in baseball. The most people who have the most strikeouts are the ones with the most home runs. So like I would rather get the guy with the home runs
swinging for the fences
at the expense of strikeouts.
Yep.
Deontay Johnson,
and you can look right there. If you look at his PFF thing, look at the target numbers. The dude is being heavily targeted, and he's catching a lot.
He's always open.
he's always
open. That's why you can throw it to him so many damn times, right?
Yeah. So even if he, and I shout out to Aaron Duncan again, but he posted a cut up of the 2 drops that were credited to him last year.
Yeah.
They were both in the first game, both in the rain. but he was wide open, like what Alex said. And so, like, if that's the cost of doing business, he will drop some, but he's open all the time. Then sign me up.
Sign me up.
So, out of 100 times, I'll take that.
Alex, you like it?
It's supposed to the guy that like doesn't make any drops, but he's never open.
This is proven Ladd McConkey. Like, this is like who I wanted in the draft. Like, he's open all of this, perfect for Bryce. As far as like, Bryce understands the scheme so well, the offense so well, and if this guy's gonna automatically be open and he doesn't have to find those small windows, man, I think Deontay Johnson is probably a top 5 I've ever seen as a route runner. I think Adam Thielen in his prime was in that conversation too. I love. I thought he was going to cost way more in draft capital because I think we talked about him at one point in time. I thought this was probably the move of the season, one of the best moves the Panthers have made in years.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really funny because I had just said the other day about just once in recent history, I want to feel like the Panthers won a trade. Like, we didn't get fleeced, we didn't get screwed over, we didn't take a chance on somebody that nobody else wanted. Like when you talk about like Sam Darnold, right? Why did we go for Sam Darnold? Why did we pick up his 5th-year option? Like, there were so many other routes we could have taken. And this year, there was Calvin Ridley that got a giant bag today from the Tennessee Titans. And Matt Harmon was very high on Calvin Ridley as well, right? And talking about how he wins and does all those things. 3-level route runner. He can win from any alignment. And I feel like Deontay Johnson, getting him for this value as opposed to paying $92 million for Calvin Johnson for 4 years, or not Calvin Johnson. I would definitely pay $92 million for Calvin Johnson. Calvin Ridley. I think that I'm elated about the value. That value is absolutely nuts to me. And it is so low risk. We are going to find out a ton about Bryce Young this year. And that, I think, is what I am the most excited about from all of these signings. There is a vision and a focus on Bryce Young, the offense. Yeah, the defense is suffering, and that doesn't make me very happy because I'm a defensive person at heart. But I think that is something that can be built over the next year or two if you find out that Bryce Young is your answer. If Bryce Young is your answer and you feel comfortable about it going into next season, then you can start allocating some serious resources into that defense. Hey, this was great. You guys really did a nice job with that. I thought that it was going to go well, but that went even better than I thought. I'm going to give you the... I really want to be... Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It makes you feel good, right? So after that, I want to play a quick game. And then, Edgar, I want to do a mock draft way that we did it with Aaron Duncan. I want to run through it. We won't take 7 minutes and 5 minutes per round. We will go through and we will make quick picks, and we will see how it looks with the brand new pick setup after all of the work we've done. But first, as I talked about earlier, as I alluded to, a little bit of a teaser and a keep you hanging in there. If you've listened this long, appreciate you. Here's a little bit more fun. The drafts that I have been doing, the mock drafts, I was putting out like 4 different ones, and I was saying, you choose, draft A, draft B, draft C, draft D. And people really seem to enjoy the which one concept, right? Because you get to pick something that matters to you more than somebody else. So let's play a game called Which One. This is going to have some to do with football, and then it's going to have some to do with some other things that I think Edgar could possibly be interested in. So let's go to question number 1. Which wide receiver? Ladd McConkey or A.D. Mitchell?
You, Edgar, or me?
I'm going to start with Edgar on these, and then we'll go Alex.
Sure. Gosh, this is a hard one. I know I got into a lot of trouble yesterday. I know you talked about on Spaces, Ricky, about like, oh, we don't need Ladd McConkey because of Deontay Johnson. It's not what I meant. I'm a big lad guy. It was more like, oh, I'm trying to get in the psyche of the Panthers, thinking like, oh, why double up or be redundant? I mean, they still can. I'm not going to say they're not going to do it, but I was just trying to get in the mindset. And so the reason why in a vacuum, I would take Ladd McConkey. Just letting you know, I love. If I started a team from scratch, I'm taking Ladd McConkey 100 times, right? The reason why I like Adonai Mitchell potentially over Ladd McConkey is because the Panthers are really missing someone like a red zone threat, and so like I like the bigger body. Like there's no tight end, there's no bruising running back. If you're in the 10-yard line, the 5-yard line, where do you go with the ball? Because everything is condensed. It's not like someone who can get a lot of separation can do so in a condensed space. And so, like, in a vacuum, I would take Ladd I know this is a cop-out answer. In a vacuum, I'd take Ladd McConkey. In the current construction, I might lean a little bit Adonai Mitchell.
Alex.
Yeah, I'm going Mitchell, and I'm a big McConkey fan. I think I would take Mitchell in a vacuum. I've actually done some. I was up all night with my daughter because I wasn't with her all day because I was at the bar. I just kind of wanted to like hang out with her. So you probably saw my 9,000 tweets, but I actually was watching some film. I really like. I think he's going to be a very, very good receiver in the league, and I think McConkey might be kind of replaceable. I don't want to say that. I think he's going to be a good receiver, but I think that Mitchell might do a lot more than McConkey can as far as on the next level. So I would take Mitchell, especially for the Panthers.
So, Edgar, which draft crush wide receiver of yours do you prefer? Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry Rice, or Javon Baker?
You're terrible.
I know.
Which one is your favorite child?
The best way that you can handle that situation, Edgar, is have one. Just have one, man. Like that's what I did. I win that question every single time it's asked.
I like just based on what is out there, I like the value of Javon Baker. If he's getting later and I can pick up pieces earlier on, I would like Javon Baker on, say, day 3 than, say, Brendan Rice on day 2. So that's my cop-out answer.
I like it. Alex?
Brendan Rice all day, in my opinion. I think Javon Baker, I just think he's kind of slow. I feel like he's just going to, I just don't think he's going to be good. Brendan Rice is more of a can't-miss target than Javon. I think Javon Baker, I don't know. I think Brendan Rice, it's pretty easy to me.
Next question. Which edge rusher draft prospect that also happens to be Robinson's? Chop Robinson or Darius Robinson? Edgar, what say you?
I like Chop in this particular setup that the Panthers have. We don't have someone off the edge. Darius Robinson weighed in at the combine around in the 280s, and I think that's way too heavy to put like in coverage or to be out on the edge and expect them to also drop back. And so in the current composition of the Panthers defense, I like Chop Robinson. It's not close. If it comes to like better player who'll have the better career, like I'm more torn about.
Do you think there's a chance that Darius Robinson could unseat somebody like a Shy Tuttle though on the end of that defensive front and possibly be very effective from that alignment?
Absolutely. And I think like if you want to say like Dan Morgan's mind or what he would do, like we just talked about being so good against the run, like Darius Robinson, John Robinson, what's his face, Derek Brown, and that trio in the middle, like, oh my gosh. So it's up to you if you want to like make your strength even stronger, or to balance out to make no weaknesses or no holes on your defense.
Correct. Yep. Alex, Chop.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be Chop for me, mostly because I'm looking with Panthers glasses on, and I mean, to your point, yes, I don't know who's gonna have the better career. It's so weird that I actually did cut my home. I didn't even know you were going to talk about the draft. I've been kind of doing my homework on it, and I've actually watched tape on these guys. I just think that I actually really like Chop Robinson, just in general as a player, and I kind of that's kind of I like Trice, I like Robinson. I like a lot of these guys. Robinson all day. I mean, Chop Robinson for me all day. Just because I'm just not looking for Darius Robinson as what we need right now.
Alex, I'm proud of you, man, for watching film.
I didn't tell you that I did. I was just.
No, you didn't. But you know what? That's the best stuff, man. It's like when your kid is doing something the right way and he doesn't have to be told about it and doesn't get recognition. You're doing it, man, and you're doing it for you, and I love that for you.
Yeah, I mean, when you're up for 6 hours and just there's nothing to do, and you got a baby that's sitting right on you, and it's just but I just did, I guess. Anyway,
so let's do this one. Which running back duo? Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, or Stephen Davis and Deshaun Foster?
This was a little bit easier for all the other ones. Like I like both options. There's one reason why this is easy for me is because D'Angelo Williams had like a little heel turn once he left the Panthers and had sour grapes, and like Jonathan Stewart like is the complete opposite, so kind of counteractive. But like I love Stephen Davis, Deshaun Foster. I love the old school vibe. Love the jerseys. I love their road to the Super Bowl, and so Davis and Foster all day.
Love that.
Yeah, Stephen Davis is like one of my favorite Panthers of all time. Like Stephen Davis and Foster for me. I also like the draft capital we gave for Jonathan Stewart. I feel like I hope he's not listening because like he's pretty active in Panthers world. I feel like he never really kind of lived up to that. I think he was a fine player, but he was never like, top 10 his position, in my opinion. It might be because he had to switch. It might have been because he had to split the backfield. But yeah, it's Davis and Foster for me.
All right. How about which Panthers greatest of all time? You want Julius Peppers or Steve Smith? I'm really putting the screws to you boys tonight, man. I'm trying to get down to the nitty gritty. I want to find out what makes you guys tick.
You're enjoying this.
Yeah. Like a Bond villain right now. Should I use like a different accent?
You should turn your chair around and then like slowly.
I wish I had one of those cats that didn't have hair,
Alex, you should go first. I don't need to be first all the time.
Yeah, I'm going Steve Smith. Just because he's like pretty much a forever Panther. I don't count Baltimore. Julius Peppers is kind of like all over the place a little bit. In a vacuum, Julius Peppers is probably a better player. But as Panther GOAT, I would say. I mean, I don't think either one of them is the Panther GOAT. But who's better? I would say Steve Smith for Panthers.
I'll say like, gosh, this is so hard. I would say like who I like better. I'll say Julius Peppers because he did leave and then he came back versus say something like Stevens who left and like wanted us to die and eventually he was forgiven for his sins and now he's back in the good graces of the Panthers. He's in the hall, he's in the Ring of Honor, so he's cool. But like Julius Peppers, I think his prodigal son story. He left. He was from the Carolinas, then came back to the Carolinas, and still produced like we would. I think all of us would take Julius Peppers right now. He'd still had a little bit of harder time.
100%. You saw him at the Hall of Fame acceptance. Like he looked like he could give you 8 sacks next season, man. Like no doubt.
So,
real quick, we'll start burning through these because I think this is running on. And Edgar, I don't want to hold you up, man. Which hot button phrase do you think actually matters more, alignment or dogs?
Alignment. Dogs is I don't know. I want to say overplayed but like it's so vague. It's anyone can be considered a dog.
I'll say it. It's overplayed.
I think it's overplayed.
Way overplayed.
I'm guilty of it, so I contribute to that. But alignment is something I actually want. Dogs, I think it should be like a minimum requirement to be on the team.
Yeah. I mean, you think that Lube? I mean, Lube was a dog, and we were 2-15. Like we had dogs on it last year. Alignment's way more important.
Yep. Good. Edgar, which '90s Christmas movie, Home Alone or Christmas Vacation?
What is this? Home Alone?
I know you're trying to mix me up. The pictures are mixed.
Just to really throw you off, so that if you're cheating in this game and picking left or right, I wanted to.
I'm not the biggest. Not to say I hate Christmas Vacation, but I love Home Alone so much more, and I like basically played out that VHS when I was a kid. So Home Alone for me.
Okay.
Me and my wife's first date was in 2009, and we watched Christmas Vacation. So that's going to be my.
Hell yeah!
And if she's listening, which she says she does, but if she's listening, I love you, Britt.
Good for you, man. Look at you're watching film. You're telling your wife you love her, dude. You're just growing up in front of every one of us, and in front of all of our eyes. You're just growing up into a real boy, man. I'm so happy for you. Which HBO series? And now this was kind of a personal thing. I don't know if you even watched these series, so this may be a question you can just skate right by. Curb Your Enthusiasm or The Sopranos?
I have not watched either, so I apologize. And also, by the way, the last slide, I'm surprised Ricky didn't put Jingle All the Way because that's our inside thing.
I was going to, man. I just didn't know if Jingle All the Way had any actual competition with the heavyweights. You know what I mean? I felt like I was throwing out like a Jake Paul against a Mike Tyson. You know, I guess that's actually happening now, right?
Yeah, I haven't watched either of these, so I'd be a terrible judge.
Alex, you got a preference on these? Have you seen these?
Yeah. Sopranos, I rewatched, and I thought it's way better if you watch it the first time around. Do not watch Sopranos rewatch because it's literally the same episode over and over again. Curb Your Enthusiasm literally saved a guy from going to jail. You should look that up. So I'm going to go with Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I love a good show about nothing, but it's a guy who's just a miserable guy. So Curb Your Enthusiasm is a good one, but The Sopranos is probably my all-time favorite. All right, which California staple? In-N-Out burgers or fish tacos?
I am team. Oh, gosh. I like both. You guys should come to California. I treat you out to both of them.
Oh, I've been there.
Good.
Of course.
Oh yeah, but Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was for the Super Bowl. Unfortunately,
Sorry, we
I
talked.
went to San Rafael when they changed the road track out there to Infineon Raceway. I went to San Rafael and was there for the unveiling of the new road track.
I would say, gosh, this is terrible. I would say fish tacos.
There you go. I thought it was pretty easy. Fish tacos. Easily, I like a good In-N-Out burger, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a burger. Nobody does fish tacos like California. Probably the only thing I like about California.
All right, which roster addition so far is your favorite? The Hog Mollies or Deontay Johnson?
Oh, you put them together. Oh, that's not good.
Got flames around them and stuff. I mean, they're real intimidating looking.
I'm going Hog Mollies. Just go ahead and get out of the way because you have two of them. I mean. It was already close between Hunt and Deontay Johnson. But you get two of them. Let's go, Hog Mollies.
I will also go with Hog. I'm a big believer in trenches first, and so like if one of these, if one of them were to fail, I don't mind if Deontay Johnson fails, and we still got two amazing Hog Mollies. It was the other way around. If Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis failed, and we have Deontay Johnson, like I'd be depressed.
That was good.
Good stuff. Thanks for playing the inaugural episode of Which One. That was a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and find one more applause, please. Edgar, you tell me, do you have an extra 10 minutes for a mock draft, or do you want to save that for another time?
Let's do it.
Yo, Ricky, I got to bounce, though. You going to be cool without me?
Yeah, Edgar, will you make sure that I stay on my best behavior and act like a grown-up?
It's your show, Ricky.
I cannot promise that.
All right, y'all. I gotta go to karaoke night at the bar, so I'll see you guys next time. Edgar, nice to meet you.
The update on that.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to get with the Big Apple Ryan. Hopefully, we can do some events up there, and maybe get
awesome.
Special guests in town. We'll talk about it. All right, bye, y'all. Keep pounding.
All right.